Welcome to Lesson 10. This is the last lesson in English 30. In this lesson, we will be differentiating, revising, editing, and proofreading. You will also be provided tips on how to spot errors in sentences. The last section of this lesson will help you recall or perhaps memorize, be familiar with the common proofreading symbols. And so now we move on to revising, editing, and proofreading, the first section or first part of this lecture. All right, so what are these three words? Revising, editing, and proofreading are actually three steps in the writing process. If you are not yet aware that writing is actually a process or a procedure, then let me remind you that it is a process, it is a procedure, and in the process there are steps. Revising, editing, and proofreading are just three of the steps in that procedure. Successful writers use a writing process. Okay, so we begin by first, usually we observe, we collect our thoughts, and sometimes we use tools to organize these thoughts, such as an outline. Okay, then after organizing our thoughts, for example, through an outline, we write or compose a draft. Okay, and then this draft should, of course, be first revised, edited, and eventually proofread before it is submitted. Okay? This process consists of revising, editing, and proofreading. For what? To create writing that is clear, organized, and effective. Now, if you are not yet convinced that these three steps are actually necessary, I would like to show you examples, okay, wherein these steps apply. So why are these steps necessary? Here is case number 1. This happened in real life, okay? So take a look at the screenshot. It says here, clearly the smartest kid in the class. Student brings massive cheat sheet to exam after professor did not specify inches for the 3x5 card each student was allowed. This was the headline, and this event or this thing happened in 2017. I repeat, this happened in real life. Okay, so what happened? All right, this is what happened. So the student saw a loophole in the instruction of the professor, and because of that, he outsmarted the teacher who did not check his instructions. And it's the teacher who posted this tweet, I believe so. So he said, first test day of the semester, and as always, I allow a 3x5 note card. Today, a student shows up with this. Sure enough, it is a 3x5 feet. As precise as I am, apparently I never specified inches. And therefore, yes, it was allowed. Well played and lesson learned. So you see, a college student outsmarted his professor by bringing in a 3x5 foot instead of inches long cheat sheet after inches was not specified in the instructions. So this happened in real life, and because of the teacher's mistake of not reviewing his instruction, somebody outsmarted him. Okay, lesson learned. So here is one practical example of the importance of reviewing your work before you have it published, before you turn it in, okay, before you print it out, before you submit it. Okay, some people might outsmart you. Here is another serious example. Okay, this happened when, okay, it's not indicated here, but it happened recently. Because of a missing comma, a business lost $13 million. Okay, a simple missing comma has cost a dairy company an estimated $13 million after a judge ruled in favor of grammar nerds everywhere. So what happened? Here's what happened. Okay, the missing Oxford comma cost the company millions of dollars. Okay, so the company actually placed an exemption to overtime wages. No, it's a law in Maine, in the US. Okay, so there's a law in Maine, a state in the US, which says the following activities are exemptions to overtime pay. So if an employee would do canning, processing, preserving, freezing, drying, marketing, storing, and packing for shipment or packing for distribution, they will not be paid for their overtime work. Did you get that? So this is an excerpt, okay? This is the part of the law that says these activities will not be granted an overtime pay. Okay? Now, the employees of that particular dairy company insisted that they should have been paid because they distributed. Okay? What they were pointing out was that we were distributing beyond office hours. So, we should have been paid. Nagdi-distribute daw sila. Okay. Now, why was their appeal granted, or why did they win the case? Here's the explanation. If the law had been written with a serial comma or an Oxford comma to say that packing for shipment, yan, Oxford comma, yan ang wala doon, no? It's not here. The Oxford comma is not in the law. Okay? If it were there, okay, there would have been no confusion because distribution and packing are two separate items on the list, and the drivers would have had no case. Did you get that? Okay, in the presence of an Oxford comma or a serial comma, distribution and packing for shipment are two separate items. Pag naglagay ka dyan ng comma, this and this are two separate items. And therefore, walang case. The drivers cannot insist to be paid because distribution is clearly an exemption for overtime pay. However, the word distribution is modified by the word packing, okay? Meaning that the sentence could be interpreted to mean that it is not distribution, hindi distribution ang exempted, but packing for distribution. Did you see that? Packing for shipment or packing for distribution. It is the packing that is exempted, not the distribution. I hope that's clear to you. Okay? Pag nalagay, if you place an Oxford comma here, the packing for shipment and distribution are two separate items on the list. But without the serial or the Oxford comma, the word distribution is modified by packing. So it is the packing that is exempted, not the distribution. And since the employees distributed beyond office hours, then their activity is not included on the list. And so they needed to be paid for overtime. The attorneys for the truck drivers argued that the grammar rule, and the appeals court agreed. So you see, just because of a missing comma, a company lost millions of dollars. That's how important reviewing documents are. That's how tricky things can get. Okay, so I have just shown you two scenarios wherein the importance of revising, editing, and proofreading your work are emphasized. So I hope that you would really take this seriously. From now on, do not just simply submit work which is actually supposed to be considered a draft. Whenever you write something, make sure that it would undergo editing, revising, and lastly, proofreading. Otherwise, error will definitely be located. Errors will definitely be spotted. Alright? And who knows? You might get sued. You might lose money because of your document which is not revised. So, bottom line is you need to be smart. When you revise, you edit. When you proofread, you are being wise. You're being careful. And that is a smart move. Next, let us differentiate the three steps. How is revising, editing, and proofreading different from one another? When you revise, you continuously receive your writing, and your focus are the following: organization, focus, or the aim, and the target audience. Revising is not moving or deleting few sentences or checking for typos. When you revise, you do these things. Okay, first, one tip. If you're already tired writing, then take some time off, clear your head, so that when you look at your work, your write-up, you would look at it with fresh eyes. Okay, so clear your head to approach your work with fresh eyes. You're not tired, and it is as if you will be seeing your work for the first time again. When you reread your work, focus on the following: content, the focus, the purpose, the aim of it, and the organization. It means to say you review your outline. Were you able to follow the construction of your essay? Does it talk about one particular topic only? Is the purpose very clear? And is the organization coherent? Are the sentences unified? Or are there extraneous information that, if removed, would not affect at all the thought of the entire work? Okay? Do the topic sentences in the body paragraphs complement the thesis in the introduction? Are they all aligned? Okay, so this is a very usual mistake. The thesis statement is not at all related to the body paragraphs. The thesis statement talks about a particular and clear claim, pero hindi siya supported well by the body paragraphs. So it means to say the organization is problematic. Okay, and the focus is also not so clear. What do you really want to talk about in the essay? Do all the paragraphs point at this particular focus, this particular topic? Is there a paragraph in your essay that is not related at all to your thesis? Then if you will be able to see that, then you need to revise your work. Fourth, ask yourself, am I communicating with my target audience? Were you even aware of your target audience while you were writing? Who is your target audience? Are you writing this so that your teacher would take your side? Are you writing this for a group of kids? Are your words in the essay relatable to kids? Will they be able to understand or not? If this is supposed to be read by the public, the general audience, will they be able to understand the terminologies, the jargons that you have placed in your essay? Yeah, that's revising. It requires a continuous look, re-seeing, revisiting of your work so that you will be able to really focus on one topic, organize your thoughts so that they will all be directing back at the topic, and then the audience has to relate with your material. The words are supposed to be chosen carefully. Editing, on the other hand, is the process wherein the focus is to improve your writing style, transition, consistency, unity, and documentation. Again, it is not simply the changing of a few words or deleting of sentences. Clear writing requires a commitment of time and attention. So ask yourself the following. Look at your transition words or transition phrases. Are they helping to give your essay a smooth flow? Example transition words. You have first and then next. On the other hand, moreover. Okay. Can you spot them in your essay? Okay, are the paragraphs connected in such a way that there is a smooth flow? Number two, are the ideas in the sentences clear? Are there repetitive words and phrases in the sentences, and are they effectively used or instead distracting? Whenever you use a word in a sentence, make sure that that word will not be repeated in the same statement. Okay, that is one tip I learned from my writing professor. Try not to repeat a word in a sentence. For example, you have already used the word tomorrow. Okay, so avoid reusing that same word in the same sentence. Otherwise, it might look distracting. Perhaps you can use a synonym if you intend to use that word of the same meaning. And then number three, since we're dealing with documentation, make sure that the borrowed information are properly cited. This is editing. Another thing is that when you revise and when you edit, you also look at the parts of your write-up wherein grammar rules may have been violated. So you check on your grammar also when you revise and when you edit. All right? Now, what about proofreading? So when students in college pass their final defense, the last step in order to complete the course is the proofreading of their capstone or their thesis. So what basically is proofreading? For you to understand the scope of your proofreader's work. Ito ang proofreading. A proofreader only looks at the surface level errors like typographical errors, misspelled words, and the format. So basically, this is what proofreading is all about. Okay, we should be looking at words which are mistyped, okay, words which are misspelled, and we also check the format of your manuscript. Good proofreading is meticulous. It is not just running a spell checker. Do not proofread until you have revised and edited your work. I repeat, do not proofread. Okay? In short, do not give your proofreader the manuscript if your advisor has not given the final go signal. I have experienced this in the past. A group has already forwarded to me their supposedly final version or the final version of their paper. Pinurufread ko naman. And then after a week, the advisor replied, "Ma'am, I still have things to correct," and her corrections do not at all fall under format, spelling, and these things. Okay? In short, it's revision and the editing ang required. Okay? Okay, so I had to stop my proofreading and told the group to go back to your advisor, make sure that what you will be giving to me is indeed really your final version. Because if you would, because if your advisor would always ask me to look at particular parts which would require revising, I'm afraid I won't be able to help you that much, because I'm not supposed to be looking at the content of your paper. I'm supposed to be looking at the, surface level errors. I am not supposed to edit, for example, the wording of your objectives, your questions in the statement of the problem. I'm also not supposed to be removing parts of your related literature. Okay? Hindi yung trabaho na proofreader. Okay? What we are supposed to be looking at are these things. Now, sometimes, when students are not really keen into looking at grammatical errors, it also becomes part of the proofreading. Okay? Yun lang. Grammar, format, misspellings, typos. But the removal of certain parts, the rewording of important parts in the paper, such as the statement of the problem, the objectives, the theoretical framework, the manual for a prototype, those are things that we are not supposed to be touching. Okay, so make sure to revise your work, to edit your work before you give your paper to your proofreading. There is no point in correcting mistakes that you may delete or change while revising or editing. Okay, so here are some tips. If you will be proofreading your work by yourself, you may use free online proofreaders like Grammarly and Paperwriter, but do not rely on them too much. You may visit this website to see a list of quality online proofreading tools online. Number 2, check one type of error at a time. So focus on one type of error at a time. If you want to look for misspelled words first, then you focus on the spelling of words first. And then on the second run, you may focus on the format. Third run, focus on grammar. Okay? Have a copy of the prescribed template based on the writing assignment. Different writing assignments may be given or may be assigned different templates or formats. Different universities have their own formats or templates for their theses and capstones. So this is why sometimes I am hesitant on accepting external proofreading jobs. Kasi I would often ask the person who is requesting for my service do you have to provide me with a copy of the prescribed template in their school. Because if he or she doesn't have a copy of that prescribed template, then I will not be able to check this. Sayang naman yung payment because I won't be able to check the formatting. Okay? The format of the paper. So, make sure that your proofreader knows the prescribed template based on the writing assignment. Fourth, if you are checking your own work, it is ideal to take note of your recurring errors so that you will not be committing the same mistake again the next time you write. Okay, so this is one advantage of proofreading your own work. You will be able to notice the usual errors. Okay, and when you spot them, of course, they will serve as a reminder of things that you still need to improve. Lastly, this one is very vital too. Okay, swap papers with a friend or a classmate to proofread each other's work. Okay, so now you know the difference or the differences among these 3 steps: editing, revising, and proofreading. Now allow me to present you a type of exam that is usually encountered by students that can help them sharpen their skill in spotting grammatical errors in sentences. Okay, so what is this type of exam? What does the identifying errors section of an exam consist of? So this type of exam has sentences. Each sentence has words or phrases which are underlined, and underneath these underlined words and phrases, there are letters which serve as the options. There is usually something grammatically incorrect with one of the underlined options. The task of students or the examinees is to identify the error and select the letter answer choice of the error. If the sentence has no errors, then the option is letter E, which is for option no error. So I suppose that you have encountered this type of test before. So in your next quiz, also in your final exam, you will be identifying errors in sentences to sharpen, okay? So that I will be able to help you sharpen your ability in identifying grammatical mistakes or lapses in sentences. What are the common grammatical errors found in an identifying errors section of an exam? So here are the common grammatical errors: sentence structure, subject-verb agreement, pronoun, preposition, misplaced modifier, and even parallelism. So keep in mind this list so that when you encounter this type of test in an exam, you will be aware of what to look for. Okay, so you already have a clue. So the item may contain an error on subject-verb agreement. It may also be an error in terms of pronoun usage, and so on and so forth. Okay, so keep these in mind. Okay, on this slide are the strategies to spot the errors or the error in a sentence. First thing to do is to carefully read the sentence to know what it is about and to be aware of it, because when you are aware of the sentence, when you really understand what it is about, and then you say it somehow out loud using your lips, you will be able to get a feel of whether it is sound or correct or not. Okay, so you have to really understand what the sentence is about. What is the subject or who is the subject? Is this a command? Is this a question? Okay. What is the predicate? And so on and so forth. Number 2, keep in mind the list of common errors, because the error will most likely be one of them. And number 3, eliminate the extras. Focus on one part at a time. Examine each part carefully. Okay, so I'll show you examples on the next slides. Okay, so here is an example to explain what eliminating extras means, and on how to focus on the subject and verb. Okay, example, this is the item in the exam. Math, developed over 2,000 years ago, have been a favorite of teachers and school children alike for generations. And then no error for option E. So ask yourself first, okay, what is the subject? Math. Nothing is wrong with the subject of the sentence. Next, developed. Does it violate any rule in relation to the subject math? No violation at all. Then look at the verbs. Yeah, we have got developed and have been. Developed is acceptable. It's correct. It doesn't violate any rule. Math have been is another verb. Does it violate any rule? Grammatical rule? It does violate subject-verb agreement. Why is it so? Math is a singular subject, so it needs a singular verb as well. The singular form of have is has. It should have been has been, not have been. So since have been is wrong, therefore, your answer for this item is no other than item or option B. Once you have located B, or perhaps A, as the error, then no need to go through C, D, and E. Is that clear? So, one at a time, look at the options and see the relationship of each option to the other parts of the sentence. Here is another example. The answer given by commission appears to contradict the earlier testimony of its members. At first glance, the sentence appears correct. Now you have to look at each part of the sentence one by one to see if there is any violation. The subject is answers. Answers is plural. Option A, given by. Does it violate anything? No, it doesn't. Next, the verb is appears. The subject answers is plural. The verb is appears. Appears is a singular verb, not a plural verb. Okay? Answers is plural. Appears is singular. They do not agree. Given by the commission is an extra detail. Okay, so you have to omit that. So never mind that one. Okay, it doesn't violate any. So alisin na yan sa utak. Focus on the subject-verb agreement. So since the subject and the verb do not agree in number, then your correct answer for this item is, of course, letter B. No need to go through choices C, D, and E. Okay, so one at a time, look at the options, see if it violates any of the things on the list, which I provided a while ago. Next example. Okay, so here you already have a clue. The error here is a pronoun. Let's see why. The safety check of the new vehicle, including an inspection of the brakes and the wheel alignment, was performed by he and the mechanic. No error. What is the subject? We have the safety check. You have learned in the preliminary period that this part, including an inspection of the brakes and wheel alignment, is an extraneous detail, which is usually just confusing beginners of subject-verb agreement rules. So you should exclude this, never mind this, because what comes after it is a verb that should be agreeing with the subject. The subject is singular, safety check. Look at your verb, was singular as well. So the agreement is all right. So nothing wrong with subject-verb agreement. How about letter D? He. Is it correct to use the pronoun he here? Okay. So the answer here is letter D. Why? The pronoun he is a subjective pronoun. When we say subjective pronoun, the other term for subjective is nominative. Nominative pronoun. Nominative pronouns are used as subjects. Okay? This is not the subject of the sentence. This is the subject of the sentence. Okay? So we should not use a nominative or a subjective pronoun here. Another clue is that we have the preposition by. So since we have a preposition here, then the pronoun should be an objective pronoun. What is the objective form of he? The objective form is him. It should be him, not he, because he is a nominative pronoun used as a subject. Him is an objective pronoun used as either indirect object or direct object. You have a clue. There is a preposition by. So him should be the object of the preposition by. Okay, so the answer here is letter D. Next, even with a calculator, you must have a basic understanding of mathematics if one expects to solve complex problems correctly. You have here a clue of what the error is. So is this a pronoun? No. Is this a pronoun? No. Does this contain a pronoun? Yes. What is the pronoun? One. So since this is an example pointing at an error in the usage of a pronoun, this is your answer. Do you know why this is wrong? Here is the answer. The answer is letter C because you. Here, we have here a pronoun. And what type of pronoun is this? This is a second person pronoun. What about one? One is a third person pronoun. There is inconsistency. Inconsistency in what? Point of view. Ito yung tinatawag na shift in point of view. Sometimes, writers use I and then mag-shift sila sa you sa second paragraph. First person and then in the second paragraph, second person. So there is a shift in point of view. Point of view in a written material should be consistent. If you will be using the first person pronoun, use the first person point of view. Okay, if you're using the first person point of view, it has to be consistent all throughout. If it is second person point of view, it should also be used all throughout your written output. If it's third person. Okay, so be aware of this usual error as well. Now, what about this? You have here a clue. The error is preposition. This is a preposition. This is a preposition. This is a preposition. This is a preposition. Now, you have to carefully look at each one and see if there is something amiss. After dating Andy for a couple of months, his girlfriend finally admitted that her real birthday is on December. I hope that you were able to recall the rule in terms of using at, in, and on in sentences. The answer in this example is letter D. Why? Because it is supposed to be in, not on. Do you still remember the rule? For months, we use in, not on. Okay, so if you no longer remember the rule, I suggest that you go back to the lecture review so that you will be prepared for the quiz and the final exam. Okay, so here, let's talk about misplaced modifiers errors. Now, read carefully the sentence. Every time he goes to the bathroom outside, John praises his new puppy for being good. Technically speaking, this is a grammatical error. However, semantically speaking, if we would be looking deeply at the meaning of the sentence, this doesn't make sense. Okay? Syntactically, grammatically, the way words are arranged, there's nothing wrong. But semantically, if we would look at the meaning of the sentence, analyze the meaning of the sentence is quite off. Why? Okay? The descriptive phrase, every time he goes outside, needs to be near the word puppy for the sentence to say what it means. Okay? For it to be an effective sentence. Imagine this. John going out of the bathroom. Every time he goes out, he praises his puppy for being good. Does it make sense? Or this one, if you would place the word puppy near this descriptive phrase, every time he goes to the bathroom outside, the puppy is praised by John for being good. Which of the two makes sense? Is this Is it this construction or this one? Right? Definitely this one makes sense better than this one. Okay. Why would John praise the puppy every time he goes out? It doesn't make sense. But what about this one? Every time he goes outside, the puppy is praised by John for being good. What does it mean? Okay, John is happy because the puppy has already learned the habit of going outside to pee or to poop instead of doing the deed inside the house. Are you getting this? Okay, so this one, the meaning of this sentence is better than the meaning of the sentence here. Okay? Sabi ko nga, syntactically, in construction, there's nothing wrong with this sentence. But if you would look deeper and you would question the meaning, something is amiss, something is wrong. Okay? Here's a note. Be careful with sentences that begin with a descriptive phrase followed by a comma. This is a descriptive phrase followed by a comma. When you see a sentence that is structured this way, make sure that what comes after the comma is the person or thing being described. Did you get that? Okay, so whenever you see a sentence like this, make sure that the word that comes after the comma is definitely the word that is being described by the phrase. Okay, make sure that it makes sense, right? Otherwise, the word that comes after it will be considered the mistake. Okay? Next is parallelism. Do you still remember what this is? In grammar, parallelism is a balance of two or more similar words, phrases, or clauses. The application of parallelism in sentence construction can sometimes improve writing style, clearness, and readability. It gives your material a logical flow. Here is an example of a sentence that has an error in parallelism. Look here. For homework, the teacher assigned 10 multiple choice questions, 1 short essay, and students were to complete a crossword puzzle. This part in red is the error. Why? Because it is not parallel with the first two phrases. Okay? The first phrase has the word 10 to indicate the number of the questions. The second phrase has the word 1 to indicate the number of the essay. This one doesn't have a number or a word that would signal the quantity. This one is a sentence. This is a sentence. These two are phrases. Did you get that? These two are phrases beginning with quantifiers. Okay? Well, this one is a sentence, a complete sentence. Students were to complete a crossword puzzle. Phrase, phrase, sentence. They are not parallel. They're not balanced. Did you get that? So that is parallelism. Okay, here is an example exam item. You have a clue. The error is parallelism here. As a new member of the secret society, George was required to shine the senior members' shoes, to carry their books, and never revealing the identities of the other members. So, what is the correct answer? So we have letter D. Why? Because never revealing, this phrase is not parallel with the infinite phrases to shine and to carry. To shine and to carry are examples of infinite phrases, infinitives. Okay, this one is not an infinitive. If you are going to edit this one, so to make it a better sentence, so, and to never reveal the identities. So if you would edit it that way, your sentence is better because the phrases are parallel with one another. The last part of this lecture is on the common proofreading symbols. This is going to be quick. Now, after revising and editing your work, after looking at the parts which require revision and editing, we now focus on the surface level errors to polish your paper. How to proofread manually printed documents. So first, you have to make sure that you have a pen with contrasting colored ink. If the document is written using black ink, so go get either a red inked pen, or pwede rin purple or blue. Just make sure that the marks will be easily spotted on the printed document. And then use standard proofreader's marks to show or suggest corrections. And then make sure that your corrections are clear and can be seen. Okay, for general errors, use the caret to show that something has to be inserted. Okay, for example, the figure 5 should be inserted in between resume and work. So you use a caret, insert on top 5. Place a diagonal through an unwanted letter. Okay, so this one is misspelled. Place a diagonal through the I and then on top the letter E to suggest that it should be spelled that way. Change a letter by placing a diagonal through it and writing the correct letter above. Okay, so you may also use the diagonal mark to delete an unwanted letter. Sometimes it looks like this. In some books, it looks like this. It looks like a pig's tail, which means delete. Okay, so don't forget that. This is also a symbol for delete this unwanted letter. Pigtail. Okay, next. To delete words and phrases, you place a running and horizontal line through them. This one. Change text by first deleting it and then writing the correction above the deletion. So I repeat, sometimes it looks like this. In some books, it looks like this. Okay, a pig's tail. Okay. For transposing parts, use the transposition symbol to indicate reversal of keystrokes, words, phrases, and even sentences. Also letters. For example, okay, please sign the from. This word should be form. Okay, so since we need to transpose or to reverse the locations of the letters R and O, so you use the transposition symbol. Okay. The word enclosed should come first before the word envelope, so you use the transposition symbol. To close up an extra space with loops, you use loops above and below the space. So the words can and not should be joined together. There shouldn't be a space here. So to suggest that, you place loops above and below the space. To show where a space is needed, use the caret and then on top of the caret, place the number sign above it. So there should be a space between the period and the S. So place a caret and then the number sign on top of it to suggest that there should be a space here. Now, if there are errors in internal punctuations, yung mga punctuations in between words in sentences, okay, internal punctuation. So these are the punctuations within sentences. So how do you change them? To add an internal punctuation, place a comma. Example, to place a comma, a semicolon, or colon, you have to place them inside the caret. For example, there has to be a comma here, so caret first, and then below the caret, comma. There should be another comma here, caret, comma. Okay, there should be another comma here, caret, comma. To delete an internal punctuation, simply use the diagonal, this one, or the pigtail. To change the internal punctuation, delete the incorrect mark and then insert the correct one underneath the caret. Alright? So here, the suggested punctuation is a semicolon. This one is a semicolon inside a caret. Okay, now next, for closing punctuation. So what do we mean by closing punctuation marks? These are the punctuation marks after each sentence. After. Okay? To add closing punctuation, such as periods, question marks, and exclamation points, place them in a circle. Okay, so if there should be a period here, but it's missing, so place a period inside a circle. If the punctuation is wrong, simply put a diagonal mark or the pigtail and then place the suggested punctuation mark inside the circle, just beside the diagonal mark. Okay? For other punctuation marks, such as the apostrophe and quotation marks, you use the inverted caret or the inverted insertion mark or the V mark. Okay, yung mga nasa taas na punctuation marks, you do not use the caret, but the inverted insertion mark, inverted caret. Okay, so example, there should be an apostrophe here. So you use an inverted caret, inside it, the suggested apostrophe. There should be quotation marks here. So use the inverted caret and then inside the inverted carets are the suggested quotation marks. To add a hyphen, you place a caret and then on top of the caret, the suggested hyphen. Okay? To suggest capitalization, you simply use this symbol. Okay? To suggest capitalization, you simply draw 3 lines under the word which you think should be capitalized or under the letter that should be capitalized. So when you see these 3 lines underneath a word or a letter, it simply means capitalize. Now, if a word or if a letter is not supposed to be capitalized, okay, it should not be capitalized, then this is what you do. You place a diagonal through a capital letter that should appear in lowercase form. Lowercase, 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 not capital HDRS. Now this word, these letters should not be capitalized. So diagonal and then a straight line to show which other letters should not be capitalized, to indicate which letters should also be in lowercase. Okay? If a figure should be written in words, simply encircle the figure. It means spell it out. Okay? Now, if a number written in word should be in figures, such as this one, then simply draw a horizontal line through the phrase, and then on top of it, write the figure or the figures. Okay, so this means spell this out. This means this should be in figures. If an abbreviation should be spelled out, just like the example for figures, then also encircle it. It means spell out. If a word has to be abbreviated, then what you should do is the same. Cross it out, strike it through, and then on top, write the suggestion or the suggested abbreviation. To insert a new paragraph, place the paragraph mark, okay, at the point of insertion. To delete a new paragraph, beginning, write no paragraph, where the paragraphs are to be combined. So for example, okay, you think that this sentence should be the beginning of a new paragraph. Then right before the first word of that sentence, insert the paragraph mark. So it means to say, this sentence should be the beginning of the new paragraph. And since this should be combined with this, then right here, no paragraph. So it means to say this one and this one should be combined. Okay, lastly, underline any word or words that should appear in italics. Place a wavy line under any words that should be in bold. Okay, so this means that this phrase should be in italics. This means that this phrase should be in bold letters. And once you're done with the revisions and the proofreading, it's time for you to rewrite your work for the final version of your document. Okay, so this is the end of the presentation. If you want to read more about the lecture, please visit these websites. This is the end of Lesson 10.